Hi YouTube friends, and welcome to this 19th entry of the Thoughtful Knitter video journal. My name's Ailey and I'm coming to you from the very top of the Scottish mainland. I'm going to apologise right from the outset for any sniffing or coughing breaks. I am 2 weeks into a particularly nasty dose of the lurgy, and at the moment I can't actually hear anything properly because my ears are blocked. But I am back out the worst side of it now. I'm not sneezing every 5 seconds, so I thought I would get on here and chat to you guys because it has been much longer than I planned, as usual. I did try and get this recorded a couple of weeks ago, but that is when the lurgy hit in its full entirety and force. So, first things first, if you want to find me anywhere else on the internet, you'll be able to find the links here. You'll also be able to find anything that I mention during this episode in the description box down below. I think that's all the important things. No, it's not. I completely forgot to say a huge thank you to everybody who got in touch about the wool and walk-in trip that I have organised with roaming Scotland in October this year. I'm pleased to say we are fully booked and I do have a waiting list on the go, so I'm really excited about that. It's only 5 months to go now. I've got my fingers crossed that we're going to have beautiful autumnal shades, and fingers crossed even more for decent weather, because you never know in October. So yeah, that is what I forgot to say. Now let's get on to what I'm wearing, which is also my finished objects. So let's just call it finished objects. So this one you would not expect to see somebody wearing towards the end of May. But the last few days we have been living inside a cloud. As soon as there is any kind of increase in temperature and certain way that the wind goes, on the east coast of Scotland we end up with something called har, which is sea fog, and we have been living inside it since Monday was beautiful. Since then it has been cloudy, 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 and there's also been rain. The rain seems to have passed, but it's still overcast, so there's not a lot of warmth around. So that is why I'm wearing a full wool jumper when it should really be coming up for summer. But these are the perils of living in Scotland. It does have its benefits too. So I told you about this one in my last episode and it is now finished. This is Smokey by Kate Davies, and it is a DK weight pattern, although I think I used, I'm not sure if, yeah, probably a DK weight yarn, but a much tighter gauge than what Kate Davies called for. So this is knitted in Gansey Gold by Caithness yarns. I have been eyeing this up for a few years. It had gone out of stock and I was kicking myself, and then when it came back into stock I decided that's it, I'm buying it immediately. Despite the fact that was just before Christmas and I had no business buying yarn immediately before Christmas when I was unwaged and had plenty of presents to buy. But we do these things, don't we? And I'm very happy that I did, because this is a beauty. So the yarn is, as I said, Gansey Gold. It's a Gansey type yarn, so it's a 5-ply and really round. It's got quite a tight spin on it. It's really round for stitch definition. And it is 50% Cheviot and 50% Castlemilk Moorit, which is quite a old breed. They're beautiful. I would say that it's slightly more scratchy than I was expecting. From knitting with it and it getting blocked, I thought it was maybe going to be a little bit warmer, but that could be because it probably is a little bit too warm to be wearing this at the moment. I definitely noticed when I first put it on, because I'm not wearing sleeves underneath this, but after 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I'm not noticing the prickle anymore, and I'm not noticing it here either, which is probably where I would most likely be sensitive. Yeah, so I'm going to do my usual contortions, trying to get up and show you even though the camera is too close. But the reason I don't put it back is because I can never get it back into position, and it takes me long enough in the first place. So yeah, you're just gonna have to bear with me as I jump up onto this chair to show you. So you can see that it's got lots and lots of ease. I think it's possibly around about 52 inches, although that is at this point here rather than this point here, because you make increases out almost like a modified drop shoulder dolman type effect. Yeah, I could have done with it being an inch longer, but it was bottom up construction, and I think I said in the last episode that there was no there's no measurement given from here to here. The only measurement that was given in the pattern schematic was here, which is halfway down your arm, as you can see once it's blocked out. So I kind of just went with a bit of a guess, and it could have done with being an inch longer, but I used every single last drop of that cone of yarn. I even was pulling bits off of my ends, you know, ones that I had waiting to be woven in. I was cutting them really close before I wove them in so that I had extra bits to do my bind off up here. Or sleeve, I can't remember what I did last. Yeah, so it's got a tighter sleeve, more fitted sleeve, and then loads and loads and loads and loads of positive ease. I changed the neckline. It looked like it was going to be way up here, so I actually lowered it and I did more of a gradual decrease here, so it wasn't quite so square. I think it was going to be more like a boat neck, and yeah, so I'm really happy I did that. It's a twisted rib for the edge ends. There's a lot of twisted stitches in this motif, and then cables here. I was concerned that it wasn't going to block out or hold its block. I had, before my last episode, I had already blocked it because, or had I? I think I had. I had blocked it so that I had an idea of how far down my arm this bit was going to come for picking up stitches and for knowing how long to knit my sleeves. But I had soaked it, blocked it. As soon as it was dry, I took it off of the blocking mats and it just went straight back in again. So it did not hold its block. But in the meantime, I follow a Shetland lace knitter on Instagram called Elizabeth Williamson, I think. And she sometimes puts up some really helpful reels, and she had shown how important leaving something to block or dress, as they say in Shetland, and I think they say here, but I've learnt everything from the internet, so I probably shouldn't be speaking in globalised speak. I should be maintaining my heritage. But anyway, side note. Yeah, she had said that for lace knitting, it's really important to give it a really, really long block, basically as long as you can. And she was showed a reel where she unblocked it, or she took the pins out after so many days, or a day or something, and then she took it out after a week, and then she took it out after 2 weeks, and blah blah blah. So the lesson I learned from that was this is going to need at least a week on the pins. So I left it for 10 days and it has held its block wonderfully. So that was a good learning point for me. I don't think I'm ever patient enough to wait for a proper block. So yeah, I thought I would pass that pearl of wisdom on to you as well. It was a wee while ago now since I finished this, so I can't remember too much about what I did. It has been replaced with my works in progress, what I'm doing with them. I have a terrible habit of problem solving on the go, not writing anything down, and then completely forgetting what I did. which isn't ideal if I ever want to go back and make it again, but the chances are my body shape and style will change over time, so maybe that's not too bad a problem. Yeah, so can't remember. I remember having a problem with the pattern. I think it was basically just the fact that it was the schematic was the main issue I had, where it didn't give you the full information. This is probably the best bottom up jumper, most successful bottom up jumper I have ever knitted. Just that tiny bit too short, but I'm sure I can just pull it and it'll come down a little bit. Yeah, I'm very, very happy, and I'm a little bit miffed. No, I'm not going to say that. I was going to say I'm a bit miffed that we're coming into summer and I'm not going to be able to wear it, but that's not true. I like summer. I do not like winter, so I'm not going to wish for it to come back anytime soon. So yeah, I would recommend. It's Kate Davies. Her patterns are fantastic. Part of the reason for knitting this was that I had looked at everything I had knitted last year and I realised that it was only about 17% of what I was making or what I was making with that was coming from either designers or artisans or farmers who are based in Scotland. And I'd really like to be a bit more supportive of like real local businesses. And I came up with an idea that kind of going forward, I'm going to start a perpetual make-along called the Caledonia KAL. But it's a make-along. You can crochet, you can embroider, you can weave, you can do whatever you like as long as the design or the materials have originated in Scotland. So yeah, I have set that up on, what's that place called? Instagram. The hashtag is, I will put it on the screen, but I'm pretty sure it's Caledonia KAL 2024, or is it just 24? I think it's 2024. I would have just used Caledonia KAL, but it had already been taken. I have also set up a Ravelry group. I had always kind of shied away from that because I know there are issues with accessibility, but I'm finding with Instagram that it's becoming less and less user-friendly. You're seeing less and less of what you want to see. Even following hashtags, you don't see everything, and they no longer do it by date. They just have some algorithm that shows you the posts that it wants to show you. So it just doesn't seem like such a good place for chatting and cheering each other on anymore. So I have set up a Ravelry group. It is called The Thoughtful Knitter, and there is a thread in there for the Caledonia KAL. It's going to be a low-key make-along. It's going to carry on forevermore, for as long as I have access to Ravelry. I don't know if there will be prizes. I've already run a make-along this year and my finances don't really stretch to buying prizes for two. So it might just be a kind of, like I say, low-key. I know there's another word I'm looking for and that's not it. But anyway, make-along where you're just joining in for the joy of it and for stretching your repertoire. Like, I know so much of Ravelry as well is driven by what other people are like, and that's what you see in the top 20. And unless you're actively looking for something, there's so many patterns out there that just you're just not aware of them. So I thought if I make a concerted effort to look out for patterns and materials from Scotland, then I'm going to feel better about my carbon footprint. I'm going to feel better about promoting the industry in Scotland, which has had a really rough time of it over the last 100 or so years. And yeah, and it's going to celebrate all that is fabulous. and hopefully bring to light some new designers, some new dyers, some new producers, and yeah, just lift them up a little bit. So yeah, that's my plan. Complete tangent, and that is also my finished object. I'm not going to speak about other smaller finished objects today because I want to tell you about my works in progress, and also I have something to share with you today, which I'll get to in the next section. So let's move on to works in progress. I'm all about the garments today. The 3 projects I'm going to speak to you about, so this one and the 2 works in progress, are all garments. This is the first one, which is a bit of a mess of cables and needles and all sorts, and it's going to be impossible to show you because it is in black yarn. But this is a pattern by Gudrun Johnson. It is called the Belmont. It's a cardigan. Cheapers, what a ravel. Yeah, you can't see any of that. But yeah, you can see it is lace at the front, either side, a very simple lace that goes the whole way up the front of either side. The back is stocking stitch. I am knitting this with yarn that I had bought for another project. I had bought this last year or the year before, planning to make the Adidas top. But my shape has altered considerably since I had those plans, and I have also been too unwell to even consider going on nights out. I had planned to make a nice, in black as a nice going out top. So I had already used up the mohair in the lovely hat that I test knitted for Hen in a Glen, which I have forgotten the name of. I will put a picture in up here. And yeah, gone. Anyway, I had already used the mohair, so I still had the black yarn. So this is Holst Garn Coast, colourway black, I think. And I am knitting it to gauge, I think. Yes, I am knitting it to gauge. But to get gauge, I had to go up needle sizes, as I always do because I'm a tight knitter, and obviously I did not get roll gauge after that, which normally is not a problem, but with this pattern it kind of is, because it is an excellent pattern. It is written out so well. It has really good attention to detail. It's got beautiful edging on, you know, you're working your band as you go up. It's got a lovely slip stitch at the end, and also like a rib type edging that brings you into the lace. And then you've got the stockinette at the back, stocking stitch even, and more lace here. But the problem is everything is written according to row number rather than measurements. So I have had to make massive changes. It tells you exactly where to place your buttons. I haven't done that. I've done it like every 20 rows or something instead. The neckline, I have already redone this. I had to start it a lot sooner than, or did I? No, I made it longer because it was going to be quite a cropped cardigan. So I also shortened the rib. The rib was, I think, meant to be 3 inches. I've made it 2 inches. But it was meant to be quite a long rib, almost sitting on your waist. So I lengthened it, but the rate at which the decreases taking effect, kind of going up the way. I don't know if that makes any sense. But anyway, because there's no measurements given here for rows, everything is just by row. I've had to, I think I reworked this side, and then you're meant to knit so long before you start the neck, but I didn't. I started straight away, I think. I have reworked the neck a few times, trying to get like a kind of rounder, more gradual decrease. I might have to work it again because at the moment this is kind of sticking out and it's not going to have a lot of edging around here. But yeah, that's the only thing I would say a word of warning for the pattern. If you have got roll gauge, then absolutely go ahead and knit this pattern because it is really well written. It's a beautiful piece. I'm hoping that this will be something I can dress up or dress down and will be really useful. I'm happy about it being really lightweight because it's going to be a layer, and it's going to be quite dressy too. I would say that maybe the cotton, the Holst coast was not my best idea because the cotton is a bit dull, if you know what I mean, and I think cotton tends to kind of pill a bit and look a bit old and doesn't age so well. But time will tell. It's nice and cheap, so that makes me happy. I'm in no rush to finish this. I know a lot of people would say that you're better to do it in the summer when it's nice and bright, but something has recently come into my life that is making my crafting with dark yarns a breeze. And that is what I wanted to tell you about today. A little bit of an aside. You'll have noticed that maybe at the start when you clicked on that there is a paid promotion in this video. Now, I have never done one before. I don't like advertising. Everything that I talk about in these videos are just things that I like myself and from companies that I would like to support. But this opportunity for a collaboration came along and I just couldn't say no because I had heard such good things about it. So let me quickly tell you about my new toy, and this is her. This is a high definition light from Serious Lights. They offered to send this to me and they've also offered a discount code to you guys. It has, let me get this right so that I don't get things wrong. It has daylight wavelength technology, which means that it replicates the daylight spectrum as close as is technically possible. So I will plug it in. You're not going to probably be able to see it on here. It goes on like this. You just have to very gently touch a button here to switch it on, and it's got an adjustable beam that goes close in and further out. I'll maybe try to film a separate piece that you'll be able to see that change in the light. It's really bright, but it's also focused in, so it is ideal for people who are reading, it's ideal for jigsaws and for artwork. So this just means that when the dead of winter comes again and we are surviving on about 6 hours daylight up here, most of which is cloudy and overcast, I will be able to see my black yarn no problem at all. It's also got a bit here where you can change the intensity of the light, which is fabulous. Prepare yourself for a very poor quality demonstration here. I've just switched on the light and I am now narrowing in the beam and expanding it again. And now I'm lowering the intensity and bringing it back up again. Unfortunately, the camera adjusts for that, but hopefully you get the idea. I'm going to turn it off a wee second and hold it up so you can see. I went for the desk version, the lightweight desk version, because I want to be able to move it around. But they do have a desk version and a floor version, and they also have a kind of more sturdy base if you're going to have it just in one place. Yeah, what else can I tell you about it? I think I already said it's manufactured in the UK. It comes with, this one comes with a 5-year warranty. There's also a 30-day risk-free trial, so you can buy it, try it. If it's not for you, then you can put it back. There are 3 different types of light within the Serious Lights range. There's Classic, Alex, and this is the high definition one. I went for the high definition because it is the one that's going to give you the truest colour perception, which I think is going to be ideal in the winter time if I am trying to choose colours for projects, especially colour work projects, where when you've got the yellow light, yellow artificial light, it really changes how things appear. So what I will tell you is, in case you also want to invest in something like this, there is a discount code available. So the discount is TTK24. I'll put it on the screen. And that gives you £100 off of the high definition light and also free delivery. It also comes in a range of colours. So this bit here can be, I think it is black, silvery colour, and this brass colour. I went for brass because I already have lights like that in this room. And then the plastic bit comes in black and white. So there's a few different options for personalising it to your own tastes. And yeah, that's all I wanted to tell you about it. I thought I would just pop it into where it was most relevant, with me working with quite difficult to see yarn. And yeah, I wanted to share it with you guys because I know there's a lot of people who don't only struggle with seeing dark yarns, but also have eyes that are getting a bit older and appreciate a bit of light when they're crafting. And the best thing about it being focused in like that is that you're not going to affect anybody else in the room with you. Like, they're not going to see it. It's like those kind of reading lights that you get on planes that are come down just on top of you. And like I said earlier, you can adjust the beam size so you can have it right close in if you need really good light in just one particular spot, or you can have it a little bit wider so you can see all around your own little area. So yeah, I would recommend it. I hope that some of you are able to take advantage of that promotion code. I won't get any commission if you use that, so I'm not saying that just so that I can get some money back. I really am saying it because I think it is a great product, and there are very few things that are manufactured in the UK these days, so it's nice to see something that is. It came packaged absolutely beautifully with really clear instructions. You opened up the box and it told you, like, it had each stage numbered of like what to open first. So enough rabbiting on. I will put this back in my bag and talk about my next work in progress. The other work in progress that I wanted to tell you about today is this one here. It's very close to being finished. I have got the body complete, one sleeve complete, and I am nearing the end of the second sleeve. This is the Moon Crush Pullover by Jacqueline Cieslak. I think I've knit it in the 3rd size, which is I think 44 inches, so it's got loads of ease. I have used Drops Belle as the yarn. It actually calls for a 4-ply woolen yarn, but I wanted a summertime appropriate knit, and also to get the gauge I didn't want it being really gapey, so I went for a DK, which also helps with my tight knitting, because I always have to go up so many needle sizes that to gauge everything is just like really open, which isn't so bad if you're using a woolen yarn, but when you're using something like this, which is a cotton, linen, and can't remember, I'll put it on the screen, blend, you don't get the filling in. There's no fuzz. You're not going to get a nice filling in of the spaces. But I will say it is quite pilly already. Like the lighter colour here is especially so, and it's covering up. It's ending up with little balls of fluff everywhere. But yeah, I am pretty chuffed with this. The colours I chose online, they're not what I expected, but they're nice. This is a lot kind of more meh than what I wanted. I wanted something a lot richer. I thought it was going to be a kind of richer colour. It says it's moss green. It doesn't look like moss to me. It looks like dried out silage. This is a lot darker than I thought it would be, but it is quite a nuanced colour. I don't think you can see on here, but the yarn has, I think, 5 different plies, and 2 of those are probably the linen. They're a lot thinner, so they take the dye differently. It's a bit darker in some of the strands. And this is probably lighter than what I was hoping, but I think it works. It's got a little beautiful drape to it. It is intarsia, so it is knit flat. It's the first time in a long time that I have knit something that flat in pieces. So you knit the front, you knit the back, you seam it together at the sides and at the shoulders, you work your neckline band. I think you're meant to work it as one. Yeah, the pattern itself asks you to knit the band at the front and at the back and then seam here. But I decided to cast off and do the neckband without a seam, and I think the back should be in this colour, if I remember rightly. I also decided to work the green for the last row on a cast off because I think this white kind of makes me look a bit corpse-like. So having that little bit of green to break it up before it hits my neck makes me feel better about it. This pattern is great, but it has exactly the same problem as the Belmont. It relies on you having the correct row gauge, and I did not have the correct row gauge, so there was a lot of finagling again. I had to work this bit here before I was meant to, according to the charts. The neckline instructions are terrible. There is a scoop neck version. I didn't want to do the scoop neck version because I don't like having that bit bare. I wanted to do the crew neck, but it was going to have it up like this. Like there was going to be no space for your neck, basically. So I reworked that a good few times to work this a lot lower, and then there were shoulder decreases shaping here as well, so that ended up being worked higher up. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say about that. Again, I think if you get row gauge, I would recommend the pattern as long as you don't mind seaming. I actually don't mind it, but I do mind all of these. You always get more of these when you're knitting in pieces. Yeah, but I'm looking forward to having this finished. I think it'll be done within the next probably day. I'm almost there. I've only got 2 more decreases and then that much to knit on the end of here. Yeah, that's all I think I have to say about that, except that anyone who has been here a long time and has a fantastic memory might remember me saying that I do not get on with double pointed needles and I think they're terrible, and agreed with Ruth of Ruth Loves to Knit when she calls them the devil sticks. But last year I decided I would give them another go, and I forced myself to knit, I think it might have been a pair of socks in them. And it turns out I do quite like DPNs. I was just using ones that were far too heavy and far too slippy. So I have bought a set of the Knit Pro Symphonies, which I use for my like superwash and slippery yarns, and I love them. They're so light, they're perfect. And I also have a set of Chalgu, whatever they're called, red lace or something, for my more rustic wools, and again, I really enjoyed them. So I was just getting to the point that all the moving around with the magic loop was slowing me down, and I thought I would give these a go. I had also tried the 9-inch circulars, and they just hurt my hands. I can't stand them. I've tried and I've tried, but I just can't deal with this funny little kind of knitting that you have to do where you're all like this. I think it's to do with the way I hold my needle, because I hold it like that, and I need to rest my hand on it. I think that's how I hold it. Yeah, like that. So I rest this bit on this needle, and you can't do that when they're only this size. So yeah, that is what I had to tell you about my works in progress. I have been whittering on quite a lot today. I had other things I wanted to tell you. I don't know if there's going to be much time. What I'll say is, if you're here for the knitting, then the projects are all spoken about. I will put another wee section at the end where I'm going to chat about a couple of things that I did differently last year and how I approached my knitting, and what I'm bringing forward into this year and beyond. So if that's the sort of thing that you would find interesting or helpful, then I'll see you on the other side. And if not, thank you so much for watching. I hope I'll be back soon. You know, I just can't seem to keep to a schedule. And yeah, don't forget to use the discount code if you are interested in the Serious Light. And yeah, have a good rest of May. Enjoy June, and hopefully I will see you that month and it won't be another 8-week break. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see those of you who are keeping with me in a minute. Okay, this is a chatty bit, so I may as well have Minute in with me while I blather to you. What I wanted to speak about, I was planning to do a separate video about this, but I made some big changes to how I approached my knitting last year, and I think it came from wanting to retain a bit of control or regain a bit of control in one area of my life, because I've been dealing with some really debilitating health problems, which have impacted on my ability to work, and which obviously impacts my finances and relationships and every other aspect of your life as well. So yeah, it kind of probably came from a place of feeling like everything else was out of control, and it would be quite nice to have a bit of control in one area of my life. And I am probably quite unusual in terms of knitters. I do not like having a lot of stuff. I don't like having a big stash. And not because I don't love the yarn, it's because I feel pressure. I don't know if pressure's the right word, but I feel like I need to be knitting it, and having it sitting there just makes me, I don't know, it just preys on my mind that it's sitting there and I haven't knitted it into something yet. But the problem with that is I don't always want to work with those yarns, or the project that I had planned to work with that yarn for either is no longer appropriate for my time in life, my body shape, my needs, or I just don't like it as much as I did when I first planned it, because I did that thing that a lot of people did when I first got into Ravelry, and decided I was going to knit this, that and the next thing, and didn't factor in the fact that you can't do it all immediately. And I was buying yarn for projects and then forgetting that it would take time to get around to those projects. I was also, don't know, I've kind of swayed between buying too much yarn to too little yarn. I often have a tighter gauge, which means that I go up needle sizes, which means I use less yarn, but I tend to like longer garments. I don't like cropped garments, so I forget about that. I forget that I'm going to need more, and actually maybe the designer has the right amount suggested in the pattern. Although, having said that, I always end up with leftovers, and I hate having leftovers because I don't have a plan for it. And not all of the leftovers will work for scrappy projects. So anyway, that is a long-winded way of saying that I decided to kind of wrest back some control of my knitting, tackle the fact that I wasn't earning, so I couldn't justify buying in yarn. I don't like having a big stash, so I wanted to reduce it a bit. I didn't really want to be buying too many new patterns, so I tried to work from what I had and look at ones that I had bought, still liked, and could focus on, try to bring them into fruition. So what I did is a couple of things. I may as well give up this because I use my hands when I'm speaking. Yeah, I made myself a top 9. No, a make 9. Made myself a make 9, which I have never ever had any desire to make or to work towards. I'm the sort of person that if I show something in public or even to myself, if I say I'm going to make this, then I will make it. I'm not good at letting things go if I've already said I'm going to, like if I've committed to it. But what I did instead is I formulated a make 9. I'll put it up here, and it had patterns in it where I knew I had a use for it in my wardrobe. I still liked it and would wear it. I had yarn that was appropriate for it in stash, and I also included techniques. So some of the things you'll see on that make 9 I didn't actually make. I ended up making other things, like on there is a hat that had herringbone stitch in it. I wanted to learn herringbone stitch, and when I started knitting the hat I really didn't like it. It had a brioche brim and then the herringbone, and the difference between the herringbone is a very dense fabric, the brioche is really squishy. I didn't think it worked at all, so what I did instead is I used the yarn that I was going to use for the hat and made a cowl. So yeah, there's a few things like that. I've got some crochet hooks in there. They're actually Tunisian crochet hooks because I wanted to have a go at that. I crocheted a hat with that as well for Andrew of Almanac Knitters beanie along last year. Used up some scraps that I had in my stash and made something that was useful for other people and learned a new technique. Most of what was on that make 9 came to pass in some capacity or another. I did not, you'll see that a Buddhist top is in there. I decided that wasn't happening. My vision for it had been to have it as something to wear in the winter for a nice going out to dinner or work night out kind of top. So I thought I'll just make myself a Christmas jumper instead, because I had the yarn, I had been planning it for a few years, and I thought, well, I'm actually going to wear that one. So yeah, so from memory, I don't have it in front of me, but I think most of what was in there happened. There was a pair of socks that I got most of the way through before realising they were going to be far too small, so that they are sitting needing to be ripped out. But yeah, so I found that really good because it gave me some focus, but I also had plenty of freedom because I was going to be making far more than 9 things in the year. So I was also following Kate of Hawthorne Cottage Craft. She has an ongoing KAL that is called the Lucky Dip KAL, and for it you just put all of your single skeins into bags that you can't see what's in them, and you pick one out. It's meant to be every month, and you make something from it. What I did was I put random skeins into bags and then picked them out when I wanted a small project. So I still had those quick projects, instant gratification or quick gratification, I also allowed myself to buy yarn for presents, so I still did my Christmas jumpers for the nephews and niece. I made quite a lot of amigurumi last year because they were quite into that. And yeah, it worked really well. I think what works best was the focusing of my attention onto certain patterns, because when I tend to make the biggest mistakes in choosing patterns is when I get swept up in new patterns. Like something will come along, I'll see it, I'll think, oh, that's wonderful, and I will sign up to a test knit, or I will immediately buy the yarn for it. And yeah, it's just probably not something either A, I need, or B, I actually like that much. I've just got swept up in the hype. So on a similar note, I also decided to not do any test knits going forward, although I did break it just the once for Alex of Hen and a Glen for the hat that I can't remember the name of that I spoke about earlier. But that was different because I knew that I would wear that. I knew I had the yarn for it, and Alex is a friend and I really wanted to support her by making it and helping her on the test knits front. So yeah, I stopped doing test knits. One of the reasons being that when I do a test knit, I always feel like I should be sticking to the pattern as written, so that the designer knows that it is correct, there's no issues with it, and that they know that the yardage or meterage is correct. But the problem I have is I never ever ever stick to a pattern because my body is not the same shape as everybody else's, as everyone else is the same. We've all got unique body shape and we all have to individualise the patterns to suit it. So I was coming away with garments that just I didn't wear. One of which actually in the Make 9 was knitted in yarn that I had taken from a previous test knit that I never wore and repurposed it. So that was really good for me, just knowing that I could make something beautiful, not spend money on it, but also not have something in my wardrobe that just didn't suit me or fit me properly. That was one of the reasons I decided to stop doing test knits. The other reason was I just can't handle the chat on them. And I know that sounds terrible. I have very limited energy and I have to be very careful about where I spend it. And if I am going to chat in a group chat, it is only going to be with a maximum of 5 people, and it's going to be people who are very near and dear to me. I'm not good at keeping up, and I always feel I have to keep up because I'm a very active listener. So I feel bad if I don't know what's going on and are participating. The other problem when it's a test knit is a lot of the time it's maybe on an Instagram chat or something, and if you don't keep up with the messages, you miss something really important. Like there might be a change to something, or there might be a better way of doing it, and you have to keep up. And what happens with those, there's so many people in them, you can go back to like having not looked at your phone for 5 hours and all of a sudden there's like over 100 messages to read, most of which are nothing to do with the test knit. So I know it sounds terrible, but I can't deal with them. So I also don't like having the pictures to take at the end. I do like taking the pictures, but I think it's having to take really good ones. You don't have to, but I feel like if I'm going to do it justice, then I want to have a really lovely picture to share on Instagram that's going to make the knit shine. And that is just really difficult. One, for the fact I don't have a lot of energy, and two, because I live in the north of Scotland, the chances of me getting a decent day to take a photo with the right light when it's not raining or windy is the main one, it's just really slim. And yeah, so I don't mind the deadline when it comes to the knitting at all. Doesn't bother me. It's the deadline for the photos that bothers me. So yeah, I let that go last year and I am very happy about it, and I have zero plans to go back to test knitting. Going forward, I haven't done a make 9 for this year, but I have been more thoughtful about things that are in my queue and Ravelry. I had cleared it completely and it now only has things on it that I have firm plans to make. Maybe not a time scale yet, but also the yarn for, or an idea of the yarn for it. So again, I'm trying to work a bit more from stash. This was an expensive one, and I think one expensive splurge a year is plenty, and the rest will be either knit in stash yarn or budget friendly yarn. So like the Moon Crush pullover, this one here, that is in Drops Belle, so that was very affordable. And yeah, so it was a useful exercise. I'm keen to carry forward some of the things I learned, like not doing the test knits, always having some like single skeins where I can pick up and be a bit more creative about what I'm going to make with it, because it's a bit of a challenge to think, oh right, what can I do with this one skein? Can I make, I don't know, pair of socks would be your obvious, but do I always need a pair of socks? No. So it's finding something, being a bit creative in what I make and what I choose to make, and having things that are quick turnaround as well. So I'm keen to bring that, carry that on. I often go to baby knits when it comes to needing something small to make in between projects. And like I said, I am going to use my Ravelry queue more thoughtfully going forwards. So that was a really long ramble about how I've been approaching my making, what I've learned from that, and what I want to take forward. And I hope that somewhere in there might be something that like rings true to you as well, or strikes a chord, and you might think, actually that stresses me out, or actually I enjoy that and that's a good idea. So yeah, if that is the case, if you have taken anything away that you'd like to try or would find useful, then do let me know. I always love hearing from you guys. And yeah, I'm going to stop rambling because I have been here a very long time and I'm getting very tired. So I will leave you there. Take care of yourselves, please, and I will see you next time. Bye.